Pat, Kelsey, and the Louisville Cardinals look to complete an undefeated month of January when they host Wake Forest on Tuesday.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 5th year covering the University of Louisville, 3rd year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making this your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Now, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. All you have to do is download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. The Louisville Cardinals back in action tonight against Wake Forest, looking to extend the winning streak to 10, complete an undefeated month of January, and get a key win for ACC standings. We'll preview the matchup against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. We'll also start to discuss bracketology. We haven't done that much on this show, but with February coming up at the end of this week, Louisville continuing to rise in the net rankings, bracketologists giving Louisville higher seeds seemingly with each and every week. It's time to discuss where Louisville's at and where they project to be at the end of the season. 2025 top 10 prospect Alijah Arenas has cut his list to 5. The Cardinals have made that list, but how good of a chance does Pat Kelsey's program have in this recruitment? We'll discuss at the end of the show. It's game day. It's about time. Am I the only one that was sitting there on Saturday just kind of looking around saying, it feels like Louisville should be playing today? Like they've been on this, Tuesday, Saturday schedule. And then when there's only a game on Tuesday and then the next game's on Tuesday, it's like, so what do we do? But I mean, the team deserved this week off. They earned it. And it's nice to be able to get some rest time for a smaller rotation and also to be able to get more time to prepare for Wake Forest. Louisville's last game, they demolished SMU on the road. Got a quad 1 win, beat SMU by 25 points. 9-game winning streak for the Cardinals, looking to make it 10, looking to complete an undefeated month of January in which they are currently 7-0. Wake Forest was on a winning streak, but it was snapped on Saturday behind a second-half rally from the Duke Blue Devils. Wake Forest, like the Louisville Cardinals, 15-5 on the year. The Cardinals are technically 3rd in the conference. They're 8-1. Clemson is 9-1. They played one more game. Wake Forest is 7-2. So this is obviously a key matchup for ACC seeding moving forward. And I was pretty shocked when I saw the line open up as Louisville minus 8.5. That seemed like a ton for me. Now, I know Louisville is playing really good. They're one of the best teams in the ACC. Wake Forest isn't highly regarded in the net ranking. We'll get to that here in a second, but I still felt like 8.5 was a lot. Now, at the same time, I understand that Louisville's played a tougher strength of schedule, but still, I'm a huge fan of Steve Forbes. He did a fantastic job at East Tennessee State. He's done a really solid job of turning things around in Winston-Salem and making Wake Forest a good team perennially. Now, this year has been a little bit weird. The offense has just been bad. And when I read you the statistics, you'll probably sit there and be like, 15-5 and the offense is this bad? It gives me Virginia vibes. Like, it gives me vintage Virginia vibes. But let's look at the net ranking for for Wake Forest. Wake Forest is currently, as of Sunday, because the Monday rankings hadn't come out yet, and this is being recorded on Monday night, so currently they're ranked 71st. Okay? They are 14-0 in wins within quad 2, 3, and 4. Quad 1, they're 1-5. They lost to Xavier by double digits, Florida by double digits, Texas A&M by double digits, Clemson by double digits. Duke was their only single-digit quad 1 loss. They also beat Virginia on a neutral floor. So 1-5 in quad 1 play. This would be a quad 1 opportunity for the Demon Deacons. Road game at Louisville, pretty obvious. But for the Cardinals, this is currently a quad 2 victory. At one point, it was actually quad 3 last week. Wake Forest ended up rising up in the net rankings slightly. I think that Wake Forest is better than their net rankings. But let's take a look at the numbers, because you wonder how a team that is 15-5 can just be this bad offensively. And spoiler alert, it's because they're really good defensively. I'm going to read you these stats, and these are accurate as of Monday. Okay. Scoring offense, 283rd in the country. They average 70 points a game. That's third worst in the ACC, behind Virginia and Virginia Tech. Okay. Field goal percentage, they're 218th, which is technically better than Louisville, but their assist to turnover ratio, 280th, 0.99. That's their assist to turnover ratio. Fourth worst in the ACC. 343rd in the country in bench points. They average about 13 points per game from their bench. That's worst in the ACC and the Power 4. They are 334th in three-pointers attempted at 5.8. They don't take a lot of three-pointers. It's the second lowest in the ACC. And when they do, they don't make them at a high rate. 27.66%. That's 350th. Worst in the ACC, worst in the Power 4. And for reference, the rankings are out of 355 teams. So 350th. So offensively, there's not really one metric that stands out as you can be like, oh, they're okay in that. They don't take a lot of free throws. They don't make a ton of free throws. They shoot like 75% from the free throw line or something like that. Offensive rebounding, 288th in the country, 9.15. Rebounding margin, -1, 283rd, second worst in the ACC. So offensively, really, really tough. Like, it's crazy because they have the players. Like Hunter Sallis is one of the best scorers in the ACC, but the three-point percentage is not really all that great. Cameron Hildreth is a really solid second option for the Demon Deacons, but it's more of volume scoring because 29% from three, 39.5% from the field. This team just really isn't efficient scoring the basketball. They win because they make the game sloppy defensively. They're 40th in the country in scoring defense, 65.6. That's third in the conference. They force a second in the ACC, 14.35 turnovers per game. And they're not top 50 in steals or blocks per contest, so a lot of it is just forcing bad shot selection and forcing self-inflicting mistakes. The key statistic here is that they are 13th in the country in opposing field goal percentage, 39%. That's second best in the ACC. So it's like the old Virginia formula. They make life so challenging for you, and they make you take tough shots, and that's how they beat you. Like Louisville averages 79.5, basically 79.5 points per game. They gave up 80 to Michigan, okay? They gave up 80 to Michigan. After that, they have not given up 79 points once outside of that game. And they won that game against Michigan. So the key here for Louisville, I think, is, again, I feel like a broken record when I say this, but taking care of the basketball and limiting bad shot selection. If you take good shots, you take care of the basketball, and you score over 70 points, you're probably going to win this game. I think that Louisville does win this game. I also would like to see the trend continue in which Louisville is making life miserable for the opposing team's top scorer. They did it with J.J. Starling at Syracuse, R.J. Davis with North Carolina, Isaac McNeely in that second game with Virginia, and Boopy Miller for SMU. Hunter Sallis from Omaha, Nebraska, like Chucky Hepburn. Not a great three-point shooter, but he makes a ton of big-time shots. Really good at getting to the rim. Like, if you're looking for a good three-point shooter on Wake Forest team, not really many great three-point shooters. The main thing is you have to limit the open shots. Like, you don't want Wake Forest to, like, take shots just because they're open, because Louisville has a tendency to let teams that don't shoot the ball well on a nightly basis shoot the ball well from three because they get open looks. So I think that this is one of those situations, and this is no disrespect to the supporting cast, but you heard, 13 bench points a game. Hunter Sallis and Cameron Hildreth are averaging 35 a game combined. That's basically half of the team's points. So it's going to come down to just making sure, actually, 35-ish. It's going to come down to making other players beat you. Like, if I'm Louisville, it's like, okay, here, Terrence Edwards, make life miserable for Hunter Sallis. And if you are able to limit what he's able to get and make life challenging for him offensively, the question becomes, okay, can the supporting cast that hasn't stepped up a ton, can they step up against Louisville on the road? And I'm not saying they can't. I respect Steve Forbes and his ability to coach, and they've done a really good job at executing their game plan and finding their winning formula as of late. They took Duke down to the wire, so it's going to be a challenging matchup for the Cardinals. But I like the way that Louisville is playing defensively. I like the way that they've been defending the opposing team's best score, and I just feel like Louisville matches up well with Wake Forest. So I look for Javon Hadley to have a big game. I hope Terrence Edwards has a big game. Chucky Hepburn, Rain Smith. If Louisville shoots the ball well from three, I think that they win this game pretty comfortably. But I think that they're going to win it. I'm not sure if they're going to win it by 8.5, 9 points. We'll see. But as long as they win, that's all that matters. So Louisville currently on a 9-game winning streak. They're 15-5. One of the best teams in the ACC. They're continually rising up the net rankings, and thus it has caused bracketologists to continually raise Louisville in their predictions. Let's get into some bracketology for basically the first time this season. We'll discuss when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's on FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. We're sort of in that period of the schedule where you still have over 10 games remaining, but you sort of just count them down because you're getting close to the NCAA tournament. And for Louisville fans, it has been a long time coming. The Cardinals haven't made the tournament since 2019. They would have made it in 2020, but nobody made it in 2020. They haven't won a tournament game since 2017. Before the season, the question was, well, are they going to make the tournament or not? And that question was really magnified when Case and Pryor, Corin Johnson, and Abubakar Traore went down. But as Louisville has continued along through this winning streak, they've started to get more of the fan base to believe that they're going to make the tournament. And at this point, knock on wood, barring a catastrophic month of February in which you play one team that's currently over 500, you're probably going to make the tournament. And there's a good chance that you have a top 8 seed in a region. Obviously not top 8 overall, but you know what I'm saying. Let's take a look at where Louisville's at, because for a long time they were on that 8 to 9 line. Now, this is Joe Lunardi's updated bracketology from Friday, okay? He updated it Friday morning. Now, Louisville didn't play a game, but obviously other teams did. If you're listening to this Tuesday or watching this Tuesday and there was a new bracketology updated, just know that this was recorded on Monday night. Louisville's currently top 25 in the net. According to Joe Lunardi, the Louisville Cardinals are in the South region as a 6 seed, taking on New Mexico. That's pretty hilarious considering who coaches New Mexico. And to make matters more hilarious, if they won, they would play the winner of the 14th seed Northern Colorado and the 3rd seed Kentucky Wildcats. Pretty interesting, right? Definitely no narratives there at all. That would be in the South Regional, which would be played in Atlanta. Auburn is the number 1 seed. Marquette would be the number 2. That would be, I would say, a pretty tough draw if you're the Louisville Cardinals. But it seems like if ESPN, or when ESPN updates the bracketology, there's a chance they could get to the 5 line, because Jerry Palm, CBS bracketologist, released his bracket on Monday at around 11 o'clock. The Louisville Cardinals are a 5 seed in the West Regional. They would be playing the Samford Bulldogs as the 12. Now, Buckyball, for those that don't know, they almost beat Kansas last year in the NCAA tournament. Possibly should have beat Kansas if it wasn't for a horrendous call at the end. That would be a tough 5 to 12. The 4 would be Mississippi State, the 13 Northern Colorado, the 1 seed would be Iowa State out west. That opening regional would be in Seattle. For reference, the opening regional for Louisville in Lunardi's bracketology would be in Wichita. So the only chance for Louisville to play in Lexington would be if they get that 8-9 seed, which hopefully that's not the case. Louisville currently in the top 25 in the net. You have to question, well, just how far. There's 2 things. This is a 2-part discussion. Number 1, let's say that Louisville handles business. I mean, theoretically, okay? You don't have one quad 1 opportunity remaining in the regular season. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 11 remaining are quad 2. You have 1 quad 4 and 4 quad 3. So not really great opportunities. The only hope you could have would be Pittsburgh continues to maybe rise up and makes that March 1st game a quad 1 opportunity. But right now, it doesn't look like Louisville's going to get a ton of help from winning on their schedule. However, the devil's advocate of this situation is, well, what if Louisville loses? Like, yeah, they're top 25 right now, but if you lose one of these games that you're not supposed to, let's say you lose a quad 3 game, how much is that going to tank your net ranking? Because the benefit is that your schedule isn't as challenging. The drawback is that if you lose a game you're not supposed to in this schedule, it's going to penalize you more in the net ranking. So the other aspect of this is that if Louisville does handle business, other teams losing as the result of a brutal regular season schedule in the SEC or the Big 12 could end up benefiting the Cardinals. I had someone ask me, what would the ceiling be for Louisville? Let's say they went out the regular season. If they do that, I mean, my goodness, that would be incredible. I mean, absolutely fantastic. Right now, they are 15-5. They have 11 games remaining. They would be 26-5 if they won out. 26-5 usually, I mean, I guess it depends on like ACC tournament as well, because the ACC, like the perception of the conference isn't the greatest, especially in the net rankings, but you'll have a double bye. Let's say that you win at least 1 game in the ACC tournament and you're 27-6, or maybe who knows? at that point, like, I don't know what the ceiling would be. That's a really good question, and one that I kind of go back and forth on, because at one point I'm like, okay, if you win out 11 games and you go on a if you go on a 20-game winning streak to end the season and you haven't lost a game since 2024 when mid-March rolls around, you're at the very least, in my opinion, a 3 seed. I don't know. It's like, okay, because Louisville's got the strength of schedule too, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're already high up in the net, and some of these could work out to Louisville's advantage. Like, right now, the Cardinals are 5-5 in quad one. Like, the Clemson game has risen up into quad one. The Florida State game is a quad one victory now. The West Virginia game is quad one. Like, if some of these wins, and like the home win against North Carolina is right there on the boundary. Same thing with the neutral site win against Indiana. Like, if more of these games go into quad one, you're talking about like a really good national seed. I don't know about the one line just because I'm not sure what the perception would be. Really, you would have to, like, I don't know. Like, the ACC gets talked about badly, but if you're sitting there at 25-5 or 26-5, you've got Auburn, Duke, Alabama, and Iowa State. And if they have equal amount of losses, those are going to be the 1 seeds. You've got some other teams such as, who is it? Florida, Michigan State, Tennessee, Marquette. Like, if you go 26-5, can you knock one of those teams off those lines to get to a 2 seed? Maybe. But then again, we're talking absolute ceiling here. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So putting the cart before the horse in this situation is not beneficial for anyone. Let's just win the next game against Wake Forest. So for the remainder of the show, we're going to discuss a little bit of recruiting. 2025 5-star prospect Alijah Arenas has cut his list to 5. And, well, you already know that Louisville was included in this list. The main question now is, how possible is it that Louisville could land Arenas? We'll discuss when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Disclaimer, only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. A lot of good stuff in the recruiting world for the Louisville men's basketball program. When we come back on tomorrow's show, we're going to discuss Michael Brown Jr. being Louisville's first McDonald's All-American since Samuel Williamson. We talked on yesterday's show about the Cardinals potentially landing Nate Ament, what that commitment would or how significant that would be, what that would mean for the Cardinals program. Now there's another player to talk about, one that if you follow recruiting, you know about, Alijah Arenas, son of Gilbert Arenas. His sister plays on the women's basketball team. She's a freshman. Reclassified from 2026 to the 2025 class. He's currently ranked as the 7th best player in the class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. Number 1 shooting guard, 2nd best player in the state of California, 6'6" combo guard, weighs 195 pounds, one of the best scorers in the class. Cut his list to 5 on Monday. The Louisville Cardinals included in that list with USC, Arizona, Kentucky, and Kansas. Now, a couple things drawing some overall connections to Louisville. Number 1, his sister plays at Louisville. Number 2, he played on the Adidas 3 SSB AAU circuit. And number 3, I mean, Gilbert has a history with Adidas. Now, it was obviously an up and down type of history with him, but Gilbert does have that connection with Adidas. The main question here is, will those connections be enough? Now, I think that those connections have gotten to the point to where they put Louisville in the mix. Let me also say, for the record, I don't have a ton of information on this one in terms of specifics. I was a little surprised to see Louisville in the top 5. I know that Louisville is still recruiting him, obviously, pretty heavily. But at this point, if you made me predict who I believe he's going to commit to, I think it would be Arizona. Don't forget, that's where Gilbert played. That's where his dad played. So there's the connection there. Also, I know that a lot of fans think that the Cardinals are, let's call it how it is, favorites. I don't get that same sentiment from the people that I've talked to. I don't have a ton of sources. I don't try to act like an insider because that's not really what I like to do. I'm just an announcer / podcast host / radio host / fan. So I have a couple of, I guess, sources, if you will. Really, it's like third-hand information. But from the people that I've talked to, that one was really spot on with the Miller Moss commitment, with the Michael Brown Jr. stuff. Told me that Elijah Arenas is a long shot. If Louisville has a chance, they need to get him on a visit before he makes an announcement. And also, the likelihood of getting Michael, Ament, and Arenas in the same class is, I would say, close to 0. I don't see any way in which all 3 come to Louisville. I think if you get 2 of those 3, you're ecstatic. Absolutely ecstatic. But I just don't think that you can get all 3 and then have enough NIL left over to be able to, or revenue sharing left over to be able to support those guys with a great team. So I could be wrong. And I know that this is not what you all want to hear, because I've looked at the YouTube comments. I know that it seems like there's a lot of confidence in the comments. And again, this is from intuition more so than inside information. It's just from the people that I've talked to, there's not a ton of confidence in this one. Like, there's more confidence with Nate Ament than there is with Alijah Arenas. Arenas said that he was hearing from USC, Arizona, and Kentucky the most about a couple weeks ago in an article from, I think it was on3.com, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. But it's one of those things to where I'm expecting Louisville not to get the commitment, and I will be surprised otherwise. Now, if he announces that he's going to make a visit, that changes everything. And that's something that we also have to continue to reiterate, is that things change so quickly. 2 weeks ago, it looked like Nate Ament to Louisville was that ship had sailed. Now it's like, okay, hold on. Louisville's in the mix. But again, I just don't see a reality where Louisville gets all 3 of them. If you get one of those 2, absolutely ecstatic. So I could be wrong. And again, this is just what I'm hearing. So don't get mad at me. Just what I'm hearing. But that's going to wrap up this episode of the show. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to recap the Wake Forest game. We're going to talk about whether or not it's time for expectations to change. We'll also discuss Michael Brown Jr. Getting recognized as a McDonald's All-American. Everyone have a great day. Go Cards. Let's get that win tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow.